Do you like Joe Biden? Do you like Donald Trump? Did he win fair and square? Was the election rigged? Who really gives a shit? That'd be my point of view right there. This is Funny Like a Clown podcast. I'm your host, Dennis Wirth, episode 86, November 17th, 2020. Here to discuss political comedian Jon Stewart. And, man, he accomplished just some amazing stuff in the political world, which is, we'll get into a very risque world to enter into the political ring. As always, Funny Clown Podcast brought to you by G Vegas Buffalo Sauce. It's hot, hot, hot. Available at www.gvegas.webs.com. Go there, get it shipped to your door, and enjoy some buffalo wings while you're listening to Funny Like Clown Podcast. Jon Stewart, man, yeah, best known for The Daily Show on Comedy Central from 1999 to 2015. And political humor is a very dangerous thing to do. It's a very risque thing to do. So many people are into politics. You got the audience. The problem is, you know, if you're a comedian, and I started out early in my career, I knew political humor was with the Dennis Millers and the Jon Stewarts and the Stephen Colberts. I'm like, there's such a big audience for that, I gotta try it. And I found out real quick that you can alienate half of your audience real quick, because if I'm telling jokes about Democrats, I'm alienating all the Republicans. If I'm telling jokes about Republicans, I'm alienating all the Democrats. So, you know, I literally had a guy flip me off and walk out. Why don't you tell some jokes about this one, that one? And, you know, I did. Early on in my career, I did some George Bush jokes because I thought the guy really drove the country into the ground. My opinion. Okay, this is America. Everybody's entitled to their opinion, and God bless America. You don't have to agree with me. Yeah, geez, I found out real quick. Then I said, okay, because I'm not really into politics. It ain't my friggin' arena, you know. It's just, I'll make fun of anybody. I don't give a shit, you know. So I said, all right, well, I'll make some jokes about Republicans and Democrats. So I went 50-50, and still, you know, you're still offending people, you know, half of your jokes. So I realized real quick that I had to cut those out of my routine, okay? Because no matter which side you pick, even if you're picking both sides, you know, while you're telling the jokes for one side, you're alienating half the crowd. Then when you switch over and tell jokes about the other side, you're on the other half. So, you really got to be a specialty, you know, where people tune you in to see what you do, and that's what Jon Stewart did. You know, he had a writing crew, had some very, very good writers that really made the show, you know, where even if it wasn't your guy, he made it funny enough, you know, you could laugh about it even if he was making fun of your guy that you really supported, and that's not always easy to do. Let's see, he went from stand-up to TV host, for a show called Short Attention Span. That was on Comedy Central from 89 to 94. Hosted the Jon Stewart Show, and that was on MTV, gave him a shot. And You Wrote It, You Watch It, which was also on MTV. So, you know, that's how you get your foot in the door there. You start out with little stuff, and then they graduate you to bigger stuff once you're known. Did some film work. He was in Big Daddy, the Adam Sandler hit in 1999. Then came his big break, Death to Smoochie. That was like his big movie that was supposed to make him or break him, and unfortunately, at the time it broke him. That was supposed to be, you know, the one that launched him into stardom. And I remember, you know, when Ace Ventura, you know, Jim Carrey did that. That was his big break. And hey, you make a bad movie in Hollywood, they don't come looking for you again, man. You get one shot. If it ain't out of the park, then, you know, you don't get a second chance, or you rarely get a second chance. You got to fight for years to get a second chance. And remember when Jim Carrey did Ace Ventura, they had a pre-screening for all his comedy friends, and they all watched it, and they're like, oh, sorry, man, this is your big break, and movie sucked, and went out, and it ended up being a big hit. So, hey, who knows what's going to turn into a hit. And Death to Smoochie, that was supposed to be his big hit that launched him into stardom, and unfortunately it wasn't a big hit, so he had to work at it, go back to working at it. And let's see, you know, he worked at it till he hit The Daily Show, which, you know, launched him into to the big time. 22 Primetime Emmys, 2 Grammys, and nominated for a News and Journalism Award. You know, it was so hot at the time, he was asked to host the 78th and the 80th Academy Awards. which if you're hosting the Academy Awards, somebody knows who you are, okay? Did some books as well. America, A Citizen's Guide to Democracy in Action, 2004 bestseller list. Earth, A Visitor's Guide to the Human Race in 2010. So, yeah, big money in books, man. If you can get them on the bestseller list, there's big money to be made. That's why everybody wants to sell their story, because people like to read. Me, I catch the movie personally. I'm not a big reader. Not much interests me. I do read some comedy books. That does interest me. But other than that, not much interests me. You know what I'm saying? That's why I never, you really have to have it in you due to the political humor. And it was just never my... It was never my interest, okay? Politics. I'll tell you why. Here's the best thing. Here's my view of politics. I don't know who made the cartoon, but there was a cow and he was at the slaughterhouse. And there were two paths he could go down the cow. He could go down the Democratic path or down the Republican path. Then if you look further down the sheet of paper, both paths both led to the slaughterhouse. So it didn't matter which way he went, he was getting slaughtered. And that's kind of my view of politics. It don't matter who gets in there. We're getting screwed either way. So everybody jumps up and down, sells their soul out to politics. I got news for you. You're screwed no matter who gets in there. So, you know, I do my own little world, my own little family, and, you know, I guess guys I root for. I root for some guys, but I don't really get involved with the whole political thing because it's just a dirty, dirty business. Kind of like comedy. It's a dirty. I'm already in a dirty business comedy. I don't need a dirty business like politics. But let's see. How did he get started in comedy? His parents divorced at the age of 11, and yeah, you know, as many comics, I imagine that played in. You know, you find humor in painful situations like that. I'm sure no 11-year-old kid wants to see his parents get divorced. And I guess it was a bitter divorce where his mom really kept him from seeing his dad, and he really grew to resent his dad. And I can relate to that because same thing happened to me and my kid. Mother poisoned his head against me, and it's been hell ever since. But I don't blame him, not his fault, but she should have known better. You know, it got so bad that he dropped his last name, which was his father's name, and used his middle name, Stewart, which was his middle name at the time. He said, you know, he didn't hate his dad so bad that he would have took his mom's last name. He said, you know, that would have been a real kick to him, so he chose the middle name, which he legally had to change to. Let's see. He grew up during the Vietnam War and the Watergate scandal, and you know, I mean, this is what you grew up watching. That was where he grew his love for politics, just watching all, you know, because, you know, when you were a kid, we didn't have all the TV channels you guys got today, man, okay? We had, like, 4, 5, and 7, okay, and maybe a couple odd channels other than that, okay? So when something was on the news, it was on every channel. I remember when Reagan got shot, it was just like every show that I want, all my shows that I normally watch was just taken over by Reagan getting shot. And I'm a kid, man. You know, the president got shot. I don't know what's going on. I want to watch my cartoons, okay? My cartoons ain't on. I'm starting to resent the president. Well, you know, I guess he ended up watching it and gaining interest. And I remember, geez, yeah, Reagan got shot. It was on TV. I had to watch it. And my father sent my mother on an errand somewhere. And I'm like, yeah, I'll go with you because I was bored. Then she wanted to turn on the radio. I wonder what's going on. Turn on Reagan on the radio. I'm like, not the radio, too. I've had enough on TV. I just want my cartoons back. So, hey, you grow to love it or you grow to hate it. I guess Jon Stewart, he grew to love it. Let's see. He had a reputation of being the funny man at school. So I guess being the class clown at school led him to try stand-up comedy in New York. And I guess it was a while before he had the guts to go up there and actually try it. Then he became a regular at the Comedy Cellar in New York, which I know, I mean, I see online a lot of comics playing that. It's a very legendary comedy club down there before the virus hit. Now they're all closing up the doors because can't do comedy to a crowd now, can you? Those were the days when you can actually have a crowd. Let's see. His first job was as a TV writer for Caroline's Comedy Hour in 1990. That was one of the shows at the time. They had him be a writer, and you know, it's a good stepping stone. You start out as a writer, and you know, all these late night shows, they all got writers because there's so much material you need. You're on every day of the week. Nobody could possibly think up that much, so you hire a writing team, and you know, that's your daily job to come up with stuff, and that's your foot in the door. If your jokes are getting the most laughs, then that gets you to the next stage where you might get to host your own show sometime. Um, let's see. Stewart friended David Letterman in 1992. Okay. He credited his appearance in 1992 to David Letterman. That's when his career really started to take off. And nowadays, if you get on the Tonight Show or the Late Show, it's a cool thing. It's definitely going to help your career. But it's not like back in the day. Back in the day, that was your only access to comedy. They didn't have the YouTubes. They didn't have the, Netflixes. They didn't have the Comedy Centrals. I mean, you wanted comedy, that was it. It was late night TV. And once you were seen on there, everybody's seen you. So while it's still a cool thing to get on there today, it's a great tribute to the past. You're not a made comedian anymore if you do it, okay? And back then, 1992, that was right around the time you could still be a made comic. You got on that show, pow, you were instantly a made comic, and he became a made man, I guess, as they'd say in the mafia. And let's see, 1993, as we mentioned, get the Jon Stewart show. That was his own show, first shot on MTV, gave him a break. And it was the number 2 show on MTV behind Beavis and Butthead. And if you ask what MTV is now, nobody probably knows because it's a shell of its former self. But that was the network that every teenager tuned into back then. I mean, they must have had close to 100% of viewership for teenagers back in the day. So if you're the number 2 show on the hottest network on television, you're really, you're really at the top of your game. When they canceled the Arsenio Hall show, the syndicated version of the Jon Stewart show, it got shuffled up in a time shuffle. I think it got up to like 2 in the morning or something like that. That led to the demise of the show because, half your audience is in syndication and nobody's watching TV at 2 in the morning. So that really messed things up for him. But a fan of his show was David Letterman, and David Letterman is the guy, I guess, who brought John forward, in the business and gave him the breaks that, he didn't do everything for him, but he gave him a few breaks that led him to do bigger things, If you're going with David Letterman, that's not a bad thing in the comedy business, you know what I'm saying? Letterman signed him to guest host to the Tom Snyder show, which was one of the big shows after his at the time. And he was the guest host, Jon Stewart, for that show. And, they thought that after Tom Snyder, retired, that, John be in line to take over the show. He did not take over the show. It was given that slot was given to Conan instead. And let's see, 1996 he had a short-lived show called Where's Elvis This Week, and for some reason that just sticks in my mind a little bit. Where's Elvis? Everybody thought Elvis was alive, and did a good skit about was Gilbert Gottfried. I got a theory Elvis is dead. Everybody else had a theory he was alive, and Gilbert's take was he had a theory he was dead. The first clue was the fact that he died. Okay, funny skit. You got to look it up. But so let's see. Fan of his shows, David Letterman. David Letterman ended up signing him on to host, guest host the Tom Snyder show. He's getting seen. Things are happening. 1997, he was chosen as host and interviewer for George Carlin's HBO special 40 Years of Comedy. And, you're the host of a George Carlin special of 40 Years of Comedy. Top of the game right there, baby. Not anybody gets that gig, okay? George Carlin, like the godfather of comedy, and they're asking you to host the show. It's like, yeah, okay, sure. It's all waiting for that call that came in. I remember the call came in, geez. When I started open mics in the Boston area, everybody I asked an open mic, what's your goal in comedy? What's your goal in comedy? We're in the Boston area. 99% of the comic schools were like, the same thing. Everybody wanted to work with Lenny Clark because Lenny's the big Boston name. And, if you work with Lenny, that's the top of the Boston comedy chain. So that became my goal, was to work with Lenny. And I had booked some big acts, and I finally... I tried to friend, his brother Mike runs Giggles Comedy Club. That's his home base. And if you want to book Lenny, you got to go through Mike. And I reached out to him as a young comic, and you got to earn your way in the business. He wouldn't give me the time of day, which I understand now because I'm a veteran comic. And every comic thinks they're funnier than they are. It's like I hadn't done nothing in the business. I wasn't ready to work with Lenny Clark yet. He knew that. Well, I worked my way up. I booked some big acts, and finally I got the call from Mike. Hey, Lenny had a cancellation. Do you want to book him in your room that night? I think so. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, which I knew I could handle it, but Lenny can pick and choose who he wants to work for. The fact that he was working for me, that was just, that was a big compliment. So, Jon Stewart, he earned his way to all these big gigs, but the fact that they're asking him away, that's a big compliment to what he's done. And let's see, The Daily Show really took heights after the 9/11 attacks. They did a cold open where usually they do a fly-in, was the opening of the show by the World Trade Center, and you really can't play that after they knocked down the World Trade Center. So they just did a cold open where there was no introduction to the show. And yeah, I remember Howard Stern. That's still legendary. The radio show The Day the Towers, because he was live when it was happening. And certainly you got a political show, the top political show at the time. Yeah, I want to tune in the Daily Show. What's their take on the World Trade Center incident there? And the ratings were just through the roof for that because they always wanted to get his take on it. And that's pressure for him, too, because, that's no subject. This is a comedy show, and that's not a subject you can make fun of. So what's the fine line where you give the audience what they want, but you don't come off as an asshat either? It's not an easy line to toe. 2002, Letterman had rumors to a move to ABC. John was considered for his CBS replacement. He was actually asked to guest host Saturday Night Live, where he poked fun at the whole thing of whether he was going to get chosen or not. Jimmy Kimmel ended up taking the spot, as we all know, and he's still there to this day. And I think, Conan just recently announced this week that he was retiring from TBS and was going to HBO. So I think Jimmy Kimmel may be the elder statesman now, I think, on late night TV. I'm not sure of that. Fact check me on that one. Somebody let me know in the comments. But who is the elder statesman of late night TV? It just might be Kimmel at this point. Let's see. In 2010, Comedy Central renewed his contract for The Daily Show. Forbes reported he was making $14 million a year, okay? You're on cable TV, okay? These are not the major networks. Cable TV, you're making $14 million a year. You're at the top of your game right there, baby. 2013, only, 3 short years later, he was the highest paid late night host, reported making $25 to $30 million a year. That's just, if you consider the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson and the Late Night Show with David Letterman, these are the top guys getting paid? Nope. Jon Stewart, that was the guy making the most money right there. Let's see, 2015, after a very long run, he finally left the show. They say in the sports world, these coaches, they get hired knowing they're going to be fired someday. You get hired doing a gig like that, you know you're going to get fired someday. You had a great run. Even Johnny Carson, the greatest of all time, his run was up. It was a young man's game, and he had a great run. John had his great run. Retired August 15th, 2015. He had Louis C.K. on for the last show he did. Longtime friend of his, and he had musical guest Bruce Springsteen close out the show. So I don't know if you're getting Bruce Springsteen on Comedy Central nowadays, but they had the ratings back then. This guy made it into the show where you could bring on acts like that, and what a time it was. What a spin he was, and I couldn't even tell you if there is even a Daily Show now, but man, I'm not even into political humor, but John made it. If I was going to watch it, he'd be the guy because of the comedy route that he took. And, I always said, if you can make people laugh and think at the same time, you're getting your message across through humor. And, I'm a big advocate for fathers' rights, and I believe children deserve both their parents equally. And we're filming a movie right now for Amazon Prime called The World Needs a New Superhero, and I'll keep you laughing in it, and the whole time you're laughing in that movie, I'm going to have you thinking about it, too. That's what Jon Stewart did. He made you laugh, he made you think. Let's see, 2015, Stewart signed a 4-year deal with HBO, and the show's premiere got moved. I think it was 4 times or something, and 2016 to 2017, then later in 2017 they just canceled it, so it never even got shown. Don't know what happened there, but perhaps part of the buyout, wink wink, we're going to cancel your show, but wink wink, we owe you a lot of money. He signed to do a 2017 HBO comedy special on HBO, so maybe that was the buyout. You won't do your show, but we'll buy you out and let you do a special, make some money on that. That was his first Comedy Central since 1996. Here's 2017, that many years later, and I'll attribute that to Eddie Murphy, man. He ain't done a stand-up in years. Now he's talking about making a comeback, but, you know, you can't just go out and do a special Raw. You have to get ready for that stuff, and it's not easy to be that big of a star and drop into clubs and not be known, and everybody's got their camera, and they get, you know, what you're talking about's out there before you actually release it, so it's not an easy time to be a comic. Let's see. What's he doing nowadays? He actually signed with Apple and put him back in the anchor's chair with Apple, and I guess he's doing what he was meant to do, man. What you know, what his big popularity thing was, and I guess I'll credit that to Dennis Miller, another political humorist, where, you know, he got his chances on TV, but his big break came in radio, man. He was on there for like forever and a day doing political humor, and once you made a name for yourself, you know, there's a big money in political humor, but as I said, that better be your thing, because you can offend people just as easy as you can make them laugh. So choose your platforms wisely. You want to be a political humorist, you better toe the fine line. Let's see, some of the odd appearances you might remember him for. You know, he was an actor as well. The Nanny, Dr. Katz, Spin City, News Radio, American Dad, The Simpsons, Sesame Street. Love to be on Sesame Street. That's the original, like, kids show right there. You know, every show is a spin-off of that one. But, man, Sesame Street was what? Sesame Street, Mr. Rogers, and Captain Kangaroo. And Sesame Street was by far the top one of the three. The other ones were legendary, but Sesame Street was it. So, what an honor to be asked to be on that show right there. Let's see, mid-90s, he launched his own production company. And, hey, if you're making $25-30 million a year, you can do whatever the hell you want. But, you know, yeah, he wanted to produce his own stuff because, you know, if somebody else produces, you got to play by their rules. You produce it, you play by your own rules, and you can bring back, you know, like David Letterman brought him forward. He can now bring the next generation forward. He can choose who he wants to give a break to. He directed Rosewater, which was shown at a bunch of film festivals. I guess up in Toronto was a big one. And, hey, you know, the movie I'm doing for Amazon Prime, before it hits there, we're going to be in some film festivals. So check that one out when it comes out. The world needs a new superhero. Let's see. Not that he needs the money, but there's big money in public speaking. He's doing that a lot nowadays, which a lot of people say, how did the Clintons make all their money? They didn't have a job. All they were in politics. Well, if you're in politics and you're seen like that, you get buco bucks for speaking engagements. I'm talking, these companies want to do tax write-offs. Well, they'll do a little tax write-off and pay you millions and millions to come speak at one of their company parties. Man, look who we got speaking, and influence all their employees to work harder for them and make them richer. So big money in speaking engagements. And you can even see it now with Cameo. You know, even the celebrities, they're on there. They ain't making a lot of money, but it's easy money, man. You make a short video for a few seconds and a few hundred in your pocket. Let's see. He was criticized, you know, by CNN, CNBC, and Fox News, which, you know, these are the serious networks, and they're criticizing him because he's taking the humorous route, which I guarantee is probably blowing their ratings away. I know that much, but I guess, you know, if you're serious about something, you don't like to see people poking fun at what you take seriously, and you know, you're taken away from a serious audience, or where you're making fun of things where, you know, you're getting your message across, but this is something, you know, they don't think news should be taken, you know, made fun of. It should be a serious thing. So all depends on how you look at it. You looking for the comic relief, or is it something you take serious? Which politics, people get very pissed off, you know. They never understood that. You know, America, you know, we fight for America, the free country, you know. You should respect that everybody can vote for who they want for, and I've seen more arguments go down because, you know, they're going to vote for somebody you don't approve of. It's just kind of a silly take on the whole thing, but that's why I don't get involved in the political arena, because it's not for me. It was for Jon Stewart, and I guess that's why he was so big, because he could take, like, ignorant people like me who don't really pay attention to politics much and make it interesting, where I probably wouldn't be doing it in the Fox News and the CNBC and all that, because it was just never my world. So if I wanted to get educated about it, a guy like me would take the humorous route, and a lot of people did take that same route, but couldn't have been that offensive, man. He had on presidents on there, you know, all kinds of big influential people. So, I mean, he was the guy at the time, so he paved the road for that. The Colbert Report came out of there. I mean, all kinds of What, I mean, Colbert actually, yeah, he was the guy who took over for Letterman eventually, so, this was the guy. He paved the way, man. Political humor, funny, and there's been a lot of spin-offs. A lot of people try to copy, but you can copy, but you can't duplicate the original, man. This guy, not that he was the original, but he took what people were doing to the next level. He's the original that took it to the heights, Eddie Murphy, he wasn't the first stand-up comedian, but nobody took it to the heights where he's filling arenas either, So Jon Stewart, he was the arena comic of political humor, where a lot of people did it before him, but he took it to heights that had never been seen before. Who was he influenced by? He was influenced, he said, by George Carlin, Lenny Bruce, Woody Allen, David Letterman, Steve Martin, and Richard Pryor. Those pretty much the guys that influenced most of us. Those were the legends of our time. Put it out there a little later in the week than when I normally do my podcast, but as I said, I'm a little bit busy on the old movie front there, so I'm getting things in when I can get them in. And I had a guest I thought I was going to get on this week, and he wanted to charge me $100 to be a guest, and I told him to go fuck himself, okay? Because I ain't paying anybody to be a guest on Funny Like Clown podcast, man, okay? I've had on some huge names, and I got the platform. I'll put you on, but I ain't paying nobody. So if you're that big of a comic, well, good luck to you. Let's see. Did have a couple of comments about Mr. Jon Stewart, which I thought were a tad bit on the humorous side. So I guess we can read those off. The couple that we did have, because these are people who are probably more educated on the political humor than me. Jeremy Paddock, Vice President Dick Cheney shot a man in what can only be described as his face. I remember that. Dick Cheney, vice president, shoots somebody without drinking beers and never did a day in jail. Me and you would have been locked up. They would have thrown away the key. But hey, we're not the vice president of the United States either. So it goes to show you the power that you have. John Paul, when he was on Crossfire and asked Tucker Carlson, how old are you? Carlson was 35. Stewart shot back, you're 35 and you wear a bow tie? Notably, Carson does not wear a bow tie any longer. So, some fun facts about Jon Stewart right there. And, man, I always said laughter's the best medicine. And no matter what it is you do in life, if you can make it funny, you're going to get more people than tuning in than if you're making it miserable. He made the news funny. That's what he made his career on. And damn it, if I'm going to watch the news, I don't want to watch the serious news. I want to watch the funny news. I want to get a laugh, because laughter makes you feel good, okay? It brings you up. That's why you want to go out tomorrow, tell somebody a joke, and whether it's a political joke or not, just make somebody laugh. And usually, when somebody hears a joke, they're going to tell it to somebody else. And it's like a chain reaction. You're spreading laughter around the world without even knowing that you're doing it. And that's what this podcast is all about, baby. We're laughing. We're getting educated about the comedy world. We're learning the history of comedy. And I'm happy you guys are doing it with me. Trying to line up some guests, man. Some comedy powerhouses in the Boston area. Stay tuned. If I don't have a guest, I'll be doing the reviews. If I do, then we'll hear the legends of comedy. Either way, we'll be learning and laughing. This is Funny.com Podcast. I'm your host, Dennis Wirth. Till next week, be politically funny. Bye-bye.